Very good morning to students. Today we are going to learn about the mind substance, part of the rock matter. The view, the content is concerned theory of substance. We are going to cover some topics. Theory of substance measurement technique, damage to the substance, method of the preventing damages. These things we are going to learn in the coming slides. So classification of theory of substance. Uh, Theory of substance. They have a descriptive theory is there. That is a particular rough substance, a factor between substances, and containing continuum mechanics theory is there. That's elastic theory and elastic plastic theories. So gravitational and possible tectonic forces acting on the rock surrounding underground excavation in such a direction as to close the opening. A part of these close results from the elastic time independent deformation apart from the inelastic time dependent deformation. And in many instances, a substantial part of the closure is due to the fracturing of the overlying rock which falls into the opening. Collectively, these effects tends to produce a lowering of the rock overlying the opening, and this process is referred to as a substance. The first manifestations of the substance, many convergency or succession of local failures in the rock surrounding the opening, such as a repeated sloughing from the immediate roof. This phase of the process is termed as subsurface substances opposed to the surface substance, which is evidenced by the depression in the overlying surface. Surface substance may range from a deformation that is barely measured with a precision surveying instrument to avoid having the volume of comparability to that of the excavated volume of the opening. Caving is the form of subsurface substances in this treatment. However, the term is restricted to a process where either or both the rate of failure or the area over which the failure occur is at least partially controlled by the mining method, as for example in a block caving operation, and as a contrasted to subsurface substances which to much greater degree is an uncontrolled process, whereas subsurface substance is primarily a result of the gravitational force acting on the rock surrounding or overlying in opening. Caving may be addition in introducing the or encouraging by other means such as blasting or by producing local stress concentrations. Substance and caving are general associated with the incompetent rock, and many mining operations which these processes occur are in a rock that would be classified as such. However, there are exceptions. Some evaporative minerals in a room and pillar mining that are normally classified as a competent rock will deform without fracturing to the degree that an opening will be closed. The roof span is increased efficiently. Moreover, the expression of these subsurface substances may be evident on surface, even though 1,000 feet or more are covered. Many stratified rock will be stand unsupported over an opening having a small span, as in a room and pillar system of coal mining, but in the outside, the span is increased, as in a long wall operation. In the latter case, of surface substances may occur by a gradual bending of the overlying strata and or by the successive roof failure. Usually, the opening will be eventually closed and the deformation of the overlying strata will progress to and cause the depression of the surface. Those substances and caving depending on both the time dependent and time independent characteristic of the rock and on the stress conditions created in the rock by the geometry of the opening or the method mining. Because of the wide variations in the rock properties and method of the mining, there appear to be a number of different substances mechanism for which is identified the tough substances, subsurface caving, plug caving, chimney, sometimes called piping or funneling. There are no completely satisfactory mathematical or empirical theories that explain any of these mechanisms. And even if theory exists, the mechanical characteristic of large bodies of rock are indefinitely known that quantitative evaluation of this process could not be made. In succeeding the sections of the phenomenology of these substances mechanism is described and mathematical and empirical theories are received in that account of the some acts of this mechanism. Most of the descriptive theory, that is a trough substance, is one of the theoretically proven. The most common observed type of surface substance is the this type. This is trough substances. Occur over excavation. These trough substances. This is excavation. Excavation in relative flat thin bedded deposit overlying by the stratified sedimentary rock, which in many instances are purely consolidated or otherwise incompetent. The formation overlaying must be coal and potash mines are a typical example. Usually, the first indication of the substance in this type of excavation is a downward flexi of the immediate roof sag, which may be accompanied by the floor heave as the aerial extent of the excavation is enlarged. The roof sag will be increased until either the roof touch the floor or roof fracture and falls. In eventually, all the rock type, this phase of the process is time dependent and terminates with the complete closure of the opening. Surface substance manifested by the vertical and lateral surface displacement usually occur almost immediately following the first indication of the subsurface substance. These displacement produce a lateral surface strain that in some instances increasing the dimension of the excavation and with the time until surface cracks are produced. From engineering standpoint, trough substance created two problem supports of the opening and our control of the subsurface substances during the period of the mining and damage the surface or structure on surface supports of the opening may be affected by the leaving unexcavated areas of rocks in the form of pillars or by artificial means such as props or chalks. The treatment of the artificial support is not within the scope of this opening pillar of has been also obviously mechanics of the surface substances. It is opening in a thin bedded deposit is to so dependent on the characteristics of the rock and mining method, and even empirical generations are not possible except under very restricted conditions. Coming to the descriptive theory and theories, observations of surface above the excavated underground opening from the basis of reduction with respect to ground movement between the surface and underground opening. Wider applicability than the continuum mechanism of theory. Bulk of current understanding about the substance characteristics derived from these theories. So, continuum mechanism of theory used to derive information on the stress and strain default to apply because of the complex variation of geological structure from area to area, the exact boundary conditions and material properties. So trough substances is a major categorization. This type of substances is usually associated with the extraction of thin horizontal or flat dipping ore body overlain by weak non-brittle sedimentary strata. Surfaces directly above the excavated openings, usually substance in trough, the area of which extended beyond the limit of the excavated underground opening. Trough substance is symmetrically about mining geometry with the maximum substance at the mid span of opening. A magnet of substance is gradually reduced outwards and away from the center and vanishes. So this is a example of the BHT brown and stroke mechanism, the source of stuff substance, the popularly standardized substance profile can be showing for the long wall excavation. So here, so that the gradient brown rock mechanics references substance profile is given above the excavation area exactly, and also the affecting the from the angle, the original surface of the angle. The surface effects associated with the top substance of the follow more general pattern. Features of substance based on analysis based on analysis of the vertical and lateral surfaces in survey have been summarized by figure with the acknowledged representation of the lateral. So then note that all the lateral surfaces displacements are towards the point over the center of excavation and they are zero at this point. The vertical surface of displacement is the maximum over the center of the excavation and these displacement extended well behind the lateral limit of the excavation. The lateral surface strain is tensile at the point outside the lateral limit of the excavation and compressive within the excavation limit that is within the limit of the excavation zone. The point of zero strain, point T, which is corresponding to the inflection point B and the vertical surface displacement are at the limit of excavation. Point out that sum of the tensile and compressive strains must be zero. The angle of break is dependent on the angle of between the origin and connecting to the limit of excavation to the point of the surface. The maximum tensile strain point A is right, which passes through the point of maximum tensile strain on the surface of all the subsurface. Define the planes break. Although the strain may not be large enough to cause a fracture for any given rock type, this line is assumed to straight, although there is some evidence to indicate that the slope increases with the gap. The angle of drop is defined as the angle between the vertical and the line connecting the limit of excavation between the point of zero vertical surface displacement, which may be individual because of its depending on the precision which the pin survey is made. So an excavation is successfully widened, indicated by the extraction of corresponding surface of curves, surface of trough become the progressively observe the compressive strain maximum. So these are original surface, it will be filled down the center of its excavation more, as well as this is vanish here, this angle of drop. So factor influencing substance. What are the factors to be influencing the substance? So angle of drop, seam thickness, width and depth of the opening, type of substance, seam inclination, and time. These are the major factors influencing the substance. So angle of draw, which is a point from the edge of the excavation to the where the vanishing the substance point and verticality. This in between these two angles, angle of draw. Seam thickness. If the seam thickness will be influencing also fact, that is the height of the seam more that much of uh, seam area, the emitter will be falling, so that much of quantity will be expecting the adjustable to up to surface. So width and depth of the opening is also one of the major factor. So which supports are using, that is also one important. That inclination towards down or dip or right side, and also time. So angle of draw, seam thickness, width and depth of the opening, type of support, seam inclination, and time. These are the influencing factors. It is the angle between the vertical and the line of joining edge of the excavation with the point at the surface, where the substances dimensions to the zero. If it is defined the limit of substance with respect to the particular underground opening, and is sometimes called the limit angle. It ranges from the 8 degrees to 45 degrees depending on the coal field, coal mine ground control, as per the PENG is concerned. So 8 degrees, 45 degrees depending on the coal field. It depending on the depth, seam thickness, and local geology, especially major faults or fractures plants, or the location of the self-supporting strata above the coal seam. So seam thickness, how is the influencing? So affect the magnitude of the surface subsidence. If the other factors are same, then the thicker the seam, the larger is the surface substance. Because a large void is left to be filled, the maximum possible surface substance is a S max equal to MA, where M is the seam thickness. You can be A is a substance factor. That is a rock nature and the what you call it, fill factor and swell factor of the particular rock, which ranges from the zero point 0.1 to zero point 0.9 depending upon the coal field method of packing, and also seam tip is a few cases. So these are the seam thickness will be influencing the subsidences. Come to the width and depth of the opening. Width and depth of an underground opening together determine a critical area or area of influence. If a line is inclined at an angle equal to the angle of draw, or draw from a point on the surface above an underground excavation, and if they intersect the coal seam at 2 points, then the distance between these 2 points is known as a critical width. As the depth increases, critical width also increases. For a coal seam at a fixed depth, if an underground opening is a wide as a critical width with respect to surface point, then maximum possible substance occur at that point. So if the opening is wider than that critical width, an area in the midspan will be experiences the maximum possible substance. The width of the opening is then a supercritical. If the opening is narrow than the critical width, the maximum substance occur at the midspan, but it is less than the maximum possible substance. For the seam, the width of the opening is then called subcritical. An opening of the particular width is a supercritical at a shallow depth, but it become the critical and then subcritical at greater depth. Therefore, depth of the width must be specified for determining about the substances. So, width and depth of the openings are the very essential factors for the substance fact, influence factor. And then coming to the other type of supports, which type of supports you are using? These are also one of the influence factors. Acco- account account of convergence of underground opening depending on the type of supports used, which turn determine the amount of roof materials to be caved or indirectly the magnitude of substance. Seam inclination for inclined seams, the surface substance trough is displaced towards the deeper edge of the opening, and depending on the inclination, may be located outside the deep edge of the opening. So this is a general flat seams are we are seen in the above figure. This is for flat seam figures. So this is directly showing that here. But in case of inclined, the how the this is shown here. How this is showing here. So see, the inclined seam, the surface substance trough is displaced towards the deeper edge of the opening. So deeper edge of the opening. Uh, and depending on the inclination, the may be located outside the depth edge of the opening. So here is the collapsed coal mine working. So the dip limit angle of drop, coal seam, and centralized limit angle. This is centralized limit angle. So upper limit of angle, substance trough, magnitude of substance, maximum substances you can be find out here. This is actually we see that here somewhere else, but here we have to take the angle and cut it here. The substance will be varied. And similarly, original ground surface, uh, subsidized ground surfaces. This is a phenomena for inclined seams. Next, so substance is maximum at the point normal to the center of the opening, rather than directly over the center of the opening as the case of the horizontal seam. Angle of draw is no longer constant, but depending upon the dip angle of the seam, being smallest at the right edge of the opening and increasing towards the dip edge. So both instant time is another factors for which both instantaneous and time dependent substances are associated with underground excavation. A time dependent portion is a much less than the instantaneous one. It is also known as a residual substances. Residual substances may be start after the active substance is a completed, or it may be occur simultaneously with the instantaneous substances. Account of residual substance is a professional to the rate of substance of surface points. Residual substance can be amount 9% of total substance if phase is stopped within the critical width of the surface point and reduced to 2 to 3% if the phase has passed the critical width. So this is the one of the time based analysis of for the substance. So these 5 points are very important for the time cases. So see that both instantaneous and time dependent substances are associated with underground excavation. So when the starting time and ending time, time depending portion is much less than the instantaneous one. It is also known as the residual substances. Residual substance may be start after the active substance is a completed, or it may occur simultaneously within the instantaneous substances. The amount of residual substance is proportional to the rate of substance of the surface points. Residual substance cannot be 9% of total substance if phase is stopped within the critical width of surface point, or reduce the 2 to 3% of the if the phase has been passed in the critical width. So residual substance or the duration of the surface substance also depend on the strata condition, depth of the extraction, kind of the packing, and it may be range from the several days to several years. Duration is longer for a thick bedded or stronger overburden, for greater depth of for a complete caving, for a small extraction area of the relatively mobile may mine in very short time. The rate of substance is proportional to the difference between the final substance and instantaneous substances. So elastic theory. It was given by the D.S. Berry in 1964. Uh, Elastic ground movement for the three kind of the underground excavation. A closer development were analyzed. Non-closure floor and roof never met. A partial closure, a complete closure. Expansion were treated as a displacement discontinuity by using complex potential method for the partial closure. Result were then extended to non-closure or complete closure as a limit. It was found that surface substance calculation for the isotropic material was smaller than the actual measurements. Therefore, their theory for the transformation to isotropic ground was developed in two dimensional. This is the elastic theory. So, elastic plastic theory is also there. This was given by the Dole and Cho was found that mind substance is essentially time dependent, that measured surface strain frequently exceed the elastic limit. Therefore, they suggested a model which behaves in an elastic elastoplastic manner. This model uses three-dimensional finity element method to reproduce the substance profile from the substance survey. So, substance measurement, measurement of the surface movement, establishment of the survey station, horizontal movement, vertical movement, slope, measurement of subsurface strata movement, underground borehole technique, surface borehole technique, wireline, TDR, mechanical grounding method. So these are the generalized surface measurement techniques. Measurement of surface movement, establishment, surveying horizontal movements and vertical movement, and slope measurement of subsurface strata movements, underground borehole technique, surface borehole techniques, wireline, TDR, mechanical grounding methods. And then measurement of surface movement involve the determination of the vertical and horizontal moment from the which substance displacement, slopes, and curvature of substrate ground surface can be calculated. All the measurements are geometrical. First step is measured surface movement is to establish surveying stations over the extracted area and measure the direction and amount of movement of these stations. That is a measurement of surface movement. The how you add the affecting the underground works to the surface. So that is a scientific methodology. That is a substance survey. It is called by use of generalized survey. So it is involved the determination of vertical and horizontal movement from which substance, displacement, slope, and curvature of substrate's ground surface can be calculated. All the measurements are geometrical. So first step in measuring the surface movement is to establish a surveying station over the extracted area and measure the direction and movement of amount of movement of these stations. So establish a surveying station, generally steel rods driven 2 to 3 feet into the ground on a surface where we expected to subsidized area, sufficient to serve as a surveying station, so provided no fortune having ground is expected in the area during the substance measurements and period. Where the frozen heaving occur, it is suggested to drill a 1 feet dia hole, 4 to 5 feet deep, which is then filled with the concrete, and then steel rods or screw are set in the concrete. Substance surveying station should be established along line parallel to the perpendicular to expected excavation area. So stations are lined up far behind the edge of the panel. Bay length between the stations should not be exceeded in the h by 20. Where is the depth of the coal seam below the surface? Observations points are stations for setting up the surveying instruments. Reference points are permanent stations establishments in areas where no substance is expected during the substance surveying periods. Stations are lined up for behind the edge of the BY panel. Bay length between the stations should not be exceeding the h by 20. Where is the depth of the coal seam below the surface. Observation points are stations for setting up the surveying instrument. Reference points are a permanent stations establishment in the area where the no substance is expected during the substance surveying period. So this is a regarding the substance measurement establishment of the particular and then horizontal movement. That is the vertical movements you are treating for horizontal movement. The objective of the measuring horizontal moment is a calculated surface horizontal strain. Strain can be determined by the change in the length over the original length between the two neighboring stations. It can be determined by the determining the exact location of the station between the each succeeding surveying. The distance between the station can be measured by taps, extendometer, or electronic distanceometers. Angles are measured with a transist or a theodolite with a sensitivity of the order of the half second. Horizontal strain measurement by determining changes in a location between the neighboring stations can be obtained by intersection methods. So vertical movement it can be measured by the leveling method with a theodolite. A theodolite, a precision level. With a theodolite or a transistor is used, angle of slope is measured in a vertical plane from the horizontal plane to the height of the surveying station. Vertical distance from the horizontal plane are then added up for each cascading survey to obtain total substance. When a level is used, either differential or profile leveling technique may be applied. The slope, the slope The slope can be calculated for the substance profile, uh, measured by tilt meter. A tilt meter based on the slope measurement is an inclinometer placed on the set of points permanently attached to serving station. Three setting points are to be used spaced at the radial angle of 120 degrees. The change in micrometer screw or reading between the each successive reading divided by the distance between the legs in the slope. Slope for each of the three supports legs can then be used to determine the direction of the and magnitude of the maximum slope or tilt. So measurement of subsurface strata movement, many consistent monitoring strata separations as a function of the phase location can be done by either underground or surface boreholes. Underground boreholes are usually drilled in the roof. The roof sag measurement devices are installed for the monitoring strata. Within the surface borehole technique, annexed boreholes are drilled from the surface all the way down to the local seam to be mined. Movement of the strata at different horizons above the seam is then monitoring from the surface as a function of the phase location using any of the following methods. So wireline method, this technique makes use of electronic logging devices commonly used as oil fields. A bullet perforated is lower into the well positioned and the desired level are fired into the wall of the well by means of surface control. A small amount of radioactive material is inserted in the bullet. So when it is shot into the strata surrounding the borehole and remaining their strata movement can be followed. Bullets are shot into various strata along the borehole and their positions are identified within the high peaks of intensity in a radioactive log. The change in the bullet positions indicated the amount and direction of movement and strata in which bullet is inserted. Another method is a TDR method is one of another method. TDR or time domain reflectometer. Uh, Works on the same principle as a radar. A good cable is grounded in the borehole in all the way down to the coal seam, caving or separation of the roof strata. Create some shots of faults in the cable. An ultra fast rise time voltage step is sent down to the cable, which is reflected by the fault. A sampler pick it up, superimposing on the incoming signaling results in a step up or down, which can be seen in the CRT. That is a cathode ray tube. A time delay between the initial and signaling of the arrival and multiplied by the travel velocity indicate the distance with the fault occur. Mechanical grounding method. A cube weight hodge with a counterweight of the surface is lowered into the borehole to specific position and grounded with a cement. Moment of weight or the stratum to which it is anchored and monitored by the measuring the moment of ground weight on surface. A maximum then anchors can be installed in the annex hole at a different origin to monitor any different movement. Damage. Damage due to the substance. Ground disturbances in the substances do through can be continued ground disturbances, vertical substances and slope. Horizontal displacement, strain curvature, discontinuity and ground disturbances, fissures or cracks, steps, cave-in pits, uh, vertical substances and slope slopes. Vertical substances does not cause any damage to structure. It is uniformly distributed as it is at the center of the trough over the supercritical excavation. The only danger of the subsidence trough like this is the a possibility of the flooding in a low-lying area. Differential settlement between the neighboring points in the long surface of subsidence trough will form a slope and induced tilting. This occur in subsidence trough caused by the subcritical excavation and around the edge of those induced by critical and subcritical excavation. Differential settlement may disrupt drainage system, the flow of cracks, a gravity flow of liquid in a pipeline, grade of the highway or railroad beds. They may also induce tilt of tailing building, towers and chimney and cause of the instability. Horizontal displacement strain. Uniform horizontal strain sledum cause of direct damage to surface structure. Differential displacement induced to compressive or tensile strain along the surface of a substance trough. Strain cause distortion, cracking and failure around building, pipeline, highway, bridges, reservoirs, etc. Tensile strain occur in the convex portion of the surface of the trough, causing cracks first to develop in the lower portion of the substructure at weak points such as the windows or door openings. A compressive strain occurs in the concave portions of the trough or causing squeezing or bulking of foundation slab, brickworks, and rafts, etc. So this is the concern for the horizontal is concerned. Coming to curvature. Curvature is the rate of change of the slope usually expressed by radius of curvature. It introduced to structural damage. First, it is a distortion of the structure, uh, distortion structure. Distortion means change of that is small shear strain. Second, flexure depending on the structure of the such as a loading bearing walls. And then coming to the discontinuity ground disturbances. Fissures or cracks. These are the opening cracks ranging from a few inches to the several feet wide. Steps where planes of the weakness are oriented favorably. Ground will slide along these planes and form steps on the surface. Steps also range from the few inches to few feet in width, cave in widths. This results from the collapsing of the ground and may be large as several feet wide and deep. Method of preventing damages, structural protection, underground control mining, safety pillars, partial extraction, harmonic extraction, rapid mining, stopping. These are the methods are there. Let us see. Structural protection one, underground controlling mining, safety pillars, harmonics. These are the method for preventing the surface structure damages. Structural protection means any monument, a river will be flowing or in a national highway, any important structure, electrical towers are available in my so the township something where is identified by the archaeology society of India. These are will be a protective film from the safety pillar point of view. Safety pillars are the solid core pillars left untouched to this protective surface structure located in directly above. So leave the pillar in the underground. Their size can be determined by the horizontal distance from the surface structure at which the advanced phase must be stopped, so that the total strain at the site of the surface structure is less than the available value. The distance at which advanced phases must be stopped from structure. Those the size of the pillar is functions of the seam depth. So partial extraction. Surface structure can be protected by the partial extraction uh, using board and pillar or panel and pillar method. In this method, some pillars are left unmined in the area below the structure. The area where the pillars are left unmined or is obtained by the projection of area around the structure on the surface outwards downward towards the seam. And harmonic extraction, this is also one important compensation of the stress and strain um, by the our methodology, so that overall surface will be uniformly uh, subsidized. That is one very important of aspects. In this method, mining is done in such a manner that strain reduced at the site of the structure is minimized due to the minimized due to cancellation of the tensile and compressive strain. Mining is done keeping the faces staggered such that the structure is to be protected is located on the common edge of the two adjacent planes. Constant logging of approximately 1 by 4th of the critical width should be maintained between the two panels. The compressive strain generated by the panel face. A head is compensated to some extent by the tensile strain for logging panel faces. So rapid mining is another important thing. The maximum tensile strain travel with an advanced phase is generally less than the final obtainable maximum tensile strain E max, and faster the mining is less than even. Furthermore, the maximum compressive strain accompanied with the traveling phase is always less than the corresponding maximum tensile strain ET. Therefore, there exist minimum rate of mining characters of each core field that will be induced maximum tensile strain traveling less than the uh, uh, less than the allowable length. So speed of the activities are also impacting strain vanishing in the surface. It is possible. It's very good method. This is also one. So these are one. And stowing is none other than simply what are the caved area we fill with the incombustible material. Since the amount of substance is proportional to the excavated seam height, it can be reduced by the stowing of various kinds. More compacted stowing allow smaller substances. A stowing procedure that permit stowing to be performed immediately after mining induce a smaller substance than if stowing has to be done along after mining. So I think we hope that what are the basic methods. So to reducing the damage of the surface, these methods are the popular one is the structural protection, underground controlling mining, safety pillars, partial extraction, harmonic extraction, rapid mining, and stocking. So by these three, these methods, we can be control the surface damages to environmentally it will be good for also mining also. Sometime what happened, the cracks are developed in the surface. Through cracks, oxygen will be entering. That is the air can enter, oxidize the coal. The firing is happening. So these are the not only damage to the surface, also it also mining is also helpful for the shallow depth of mining. It is the breathing of air is can possible. So that can be controlled by the rapid mining, stopping, harmonic, partial action, safety pillars, underground control mining, structure protections for the purpose. Right. With this, I hope what is so far you are learning with uh, basic idea of the what is the meaning of substance, uh, basic definition of substance, what are the causes of substances, and also what are the factors influencing the substance factors, and also if the same will be inclination, what are the effects of the substance, and preventive measures, and also measurement is also important. How much quantity substrate is also important factor, that is also we are covered here, and also preventing measures. So I hope that you are enjoyed today class. Uh, Go through these notes, which is a very nice PPTs, a content and collection of theory of substances, description theory, continuity mechanism theory, drop substance over long wall extraction, factors in substances, angle of draw, skin thickness, width and depth of the opening, type of supports. In fact, for inclined seams, how they will be changing of the angle of draw at 45 degrees. Later, it will be complete shifted. So that will be explained here. Substance is a maximum wear, time, and also elastic theory, substantial measurement technique, measurement of surface per moment, establish surveying stations, horizontal movement and vertical movement, slope, measurement of surface start of moment, wireline method, TDR method, mechanical grounding method, damage to the surface, vertical substance and slope, horizontal displacement strain, curvature, stability grounding disturbances, method of preventing damages. That is one is the safety pillars, partial extraction, harmonic extraction, rapid mining, stowing. So hope that we are getting understand. Thank you.